very good morning. You're watching a new episode of Melt. I'm Ritvika Gupta. Last year, the advertising industry witnessed a steep drop in the overall media investments because of the pandemic-induced lockdown. But as we are gradually coming out of the lockdown, backed by seasonal spends and big-ticket events like the IPL, the industry is expected to see a recovery this year. GroupM has unveiled its annual report this year, next year 2021 that forecasts ad spend growth globally and in India. Here are some of the key findings from the report. Global ad spend is expected to grow by 10.2% in 2021. India's ad investment is expected to grow by 23.2% this year to reach an estimated 80,123 crore rupees. TV is expected to cover 45% of the overall India ad spend pie in 2021, while digital is projected to make up 35%, print 16%, outdoor 2%, audio 2%, and cinema 1%. For more insights from the report, Anant Rangaswami, editor of Melt, will be in conversation with Prasanth Kumar, CEO GroupM South Asia, fondly known in the industry as PK. Let's get ready to melt with Prasanth Kumar.
Prasanth, good to see you after a recent health setback you had, but you're looking fit, so it's good to see you like this.
Yeah, thank you.
So, I thought, to use the normal construct of this year, next year, I thought we'll junk that construct and we'll talk only about next year,
Okay.
So I attended your press conference. I heard every word. And, just when I was feeling good about it, then we start comparing it to last year, year before last, and so on, and then it gets deflating. So I thought, for the sake of this conversation, let us only focus on the next year.
Okay.
Now, overall, you added a tinge of optimism to your projections, that is GroupM's projections. So to begin with, let me ask you, the larger optimism, where does that come from?
There is a momentum in the economy. There is a momentum in the market. There is a disruption that happened. And after that, I think a lot of adaptivity happened onto the business models, which we could see. There's a lot of learning that happened last year. And even in last year, we have seen month-on-month progress happening and how different sectors have started behaving and how some of the initiatives from a perspective of, capital expenditure in urban, rural aspects, initiatives that policies that came from government. So it's a combination of all of that, right? In fact, as a country, as a market, from our, resources and our momentum on the economy and different aspects which is playing across urban, rural, and different markets, all of that's put together is where the growth recovery and then how the growth is being projected, right? That's how we are looking at it, right? Yes, that's true that the shape of recovery may not be the same as is, but at the same time, the recovery is on the game and it will play on in a much better form.
Right. So in your presentation, you alluded to certainly a very good year for digital coming up, a reasonably good year for TV. So first, let's start with digital. What do you think will drive this growth in digital? And what are the subsets in digital where we will see activity which is exciting?
It's very interesting. Actually, the world has become digital, right? I think for most of the people, right? If you look at in the entire chain of how the business is done, in the entire chain of how the entertainment is consumed, right? And in every other chain in terms of different sectors, I think digitization has happened. And last year, 2020, has only accelerated the way of life, how we live in digital has happened. So if you look at different aspects on digital, whether it's entertainment, whether it is the platforms, whether it is in the area of different models in terms of distribution or any parts of the business, all of this is getting accelerated in a very faster pace, right? And this will have implied derivatives of how each business can grow. So whether in the area of e-commerce, whether in the area of influencer social platforms, in the area of OTT, whether in the area of audio, which is again online audio, from that context, all of it will start playing. Esports, gaming, all of this will start playing on. So it's a comprehensive set, right? Which will actually, encourage the growth on digital from now onwards even more.
Right. So what are the subsets? Now, yesterday you alluded to shall we say, obvious or apparent growth in certain verticals, in certain business categories, overall, adding to
Yeah.
ADEX. So, what are the
Yeah.
categories that you are optimistic about? And if you can help my viewers understand why are you optimistic about those categories?
Yeah. So I think we spoke about the FMCG and e-commerce are the two largest categories, which are actually laying the foundation. And we have seen that how FMCGs have started focusing into faster or newer growth engines, whether it's from a market perspective or whether it's from a different, subcategory perspective within FMCG sector itself, right? We've also seen that how some of them experiment with reaching consumers directly and with the use of hyper local delivery options and multiple forms in that area. We've also seen how digitization of distribution channels, have been experimented and seamless delivery from factory to retail outlets are happening. Also, there is a focus of health and hygiene, which is going on, and different aspects on focusing on multiple different towns, in whether it's tier two or tier three towns, and therefore sustainable and conscious consumption could be on the rise, right? And we are seeing that urban consumption, which probably took a hit last year, will also likely to see growth on a low base also. So that is from an FMCG perspective. From an e-commerce perspective, we are seeing that again, it is it's a plethora of different services that is getting started. Whether it is in the area of the pure e-commerce perspective, or in the area of online gaming, in the area of online shopping, which is expanding more, in a geographical, even in a non-metro perspective, there is an online entertainment perspective, in different aspects being built on, different food delivery aspects, auto resellers coming in together, online, policy making, which is happening, and different aspects from an e-commerce perspective, which is again, steadfast, getting accelerated. Auto as a category is another category. Auto, telecom, retail, and education are other categories which you see, which will also, steadfast, help the recovery growth in a certain form. Again, driven by different policies, driven by different consumption increase which are happening in these categories. As we saw, education, online education is becoming also a highly interesting category to watch out, because as you see, there are multiple players which are there now in the market, right? So many of this actually becomes the center of, or the impetus to the growth story for 2021.
So, getting back to the digitization story, yesterday you did say in your press conference that some of the changes are permanent and some are temporary. Transient is the word you used.
Yeah.
So, of all the changes that which we're going to see, what do you think are the important permanent changes that we will see in consumer behavior?
The digitization and the digitized way of living, I think, has been one of the biggest learning for consumers, right? Getting things available to them, and living in a digitized way of life is something which I think consumers are going to take learning, and many of that will become a permanency in their consumption behavior and the way of life in the consumption world, right? I also feel that many of the health and hygiene aspects which people have got into, right, as a trend, that is something which many will continue to follow, and many of it will actually be a permanent aspect to them as well, right? That's the other one which I see. The way of life, in terms of, I think, some amount of reduction on travel, or some amount of connectivity, or how more constant connectivity, which means people actually learn that they, without traveling, they could probably be in touch with the use of like Zoom and Teams and WhatsApp video calls and Google Meets and stuff like that, right? I think that's again another one to stay in touch in the communication world. So all of this, I think, there's a permanency and there is a continuity which we can see from a thing that's changing in a consumer world, right? From a transient perspective, I think many of it actually came on with the reaction to many multiple lockdowns, stringent policies and stringent curfews, etc., which happened. But that again, learning way of working, etc. I think initially many people were quite excited with the fact that work from home something which should continue, right? I think slowly in our own world, people felt that it needs to be a mixture, So those things are things which will, some learning will happen, some things will evolve, some things will change, right? From that context. Yeah. So that's my, answer to some of the observations which I've seen.
In your study, one is you certainly see growth in OTT. You see a lot of growth in digital. But what is, to me, exciting is you're seeing that television is more or less holding its own. No great worry yet for television, which is very different from the global numbers which you also showed us, where globally television is slipping, but in India, television story is very good. So what is the basis for that good television story?
I think television, in actually in about last 6-7 years when TV actually over to print, right? Almost last 7-8 years back. It has also given a lot of importance to different types of content, right? Different languages and ability to continue attracting consumers into that platform, right? And multiple events which, like, whether it's a sports event or whether it's a reality event or different types of content which came. I think a lot of investment went on to the entire TV ecosystem, which actually helped to continue and kept on innovating on it, right? Sports which were never so popular, like kabaddi, etc., came into being, and that became, took a share of how a viewing pattern can happen. I mean, as a simple example, if you look at it, that has actually helped TV to sustain the leadership. You're right. Globally, digital is the number one medium, but in India, though digital and TV contributes to 80%, but at the same time, TV continues to be number one. Right now, the whole point is how the convenience of viewing, convenience of consuming this platform, this medium, from now on will be used or as a utility from a consumer perspective. What I mean is, there are different ways to consume, right? I mean, there is a DTH home, there are different different formats, different devices, etc., to connect it, right? So all that, along with OTT being accessible, connected TV penetration coming, that's all watch outs from a TV perspective, right? From that context. But yeah, so mainly I would say the content is the key element driver for TV, which has helped TV to sustain. And more and more, I see that there will be a lot more innovation onto content, which we can see from this medium also.
Right. So now we come to print, which is not a great story in your projections for the year to come. What was you advise owners of print products?
Yeah. So frankly, print, we had estimated the growth to be at 23%, right, in 21, right? And that's actually again coming from a low base effect of 2020, because we did have challenges in that medium, like many other medium where availability itself became an issue because of the pandemic, right? It had now. So it is growing. It is growing at a much faster pace than TV. From that estimation, in 21. The whole point is how print actually looks at its model, right? It is, to me, again, the learning on TV, which is content, and how contents should continue to attract the readers, from a format consumption is very critical. So how do we play onto that as one? I think there is an integrated kind of an asset which many of the print networks have, which is many of the networks also have their online platforms. They also have their many other medium platforms. As an integrated solution, how can print play a larger role from a solution for brands? Will play a role in that, right? I think, to be very frank, how the model itself, whether is it always necessary to have a 30-page or 32-page or a 24-page, or how should we look at from a context of the model itself? Now, that is the third part, right? From a cost aspect, I think it's extremely critical, right? And the fourth point would be to look at a little more deeper in the model in terms of how subscription versus advertising, economic sense in the model, and therefore how can probably subscription, revenue can be slightly more, focused on it. It is also true that this is slightly different between English versus, regional, right? And regional has a larger role and a larger grip for consumers in the country, from that context, because the multiple languages playing on it. It's an opportunity, right? These are different ideas and different thoughts, which I think different owners can really apply into that, and apply different model thinking. Some kind of disruption in the model, I think, is required. We have been following the same model in a certain cost structures and certain ways of how we look at it, right? I think it is playing on different seasons and different cycles of different months, as well as the reader is a very precious asset for the print owner. So how can we play that, use that for the subscription perspective? These are different thoughts which I would request and submit to the print network community to use it for, because again, as you said, as TV is a unique thing for India, print also is unique, because unlike other markets globally, we are still, playing a larger, we are playing a 16%, share role in the ad even in 2021, right? So that I think is a big advantage, and we should play to that.
So PK, it brings me to, a very touchy point for me. You and I have discussed this for years, which is measurement.
Yeah.
Whether it is TV or whether it is print, one of the problems in India, a challenge we are facing today is the credibility of the measurement system. On print, we don't know when IRS will come again. Whenever I speak to somebody who's on the committee, they say it will come next month. TV, we know what is happening with BARC. So what do you think, if there is a gap in measurement, how do you as a consultant advise your brands on where to park their money?
So the fact is, there is always, there is a journey to improve the current state of affairs, right? I think there is a lot of, aspects from a connected consumer and emergence of on-demand consumption, which is today being seen, right, versus appointment, and how, how this shapes into TV to digital consumption is very critical, right? I think the key factor is also outcome-focused measurement with attribution attached to every media dollar. I think that is again becoming important, and more brands and companies are spending their dollar on every single penny on investing on such platforms and looking at different layers of data. Because moving to multiple layers of data, whether it's first-party consumer data, whether it's a live panel or different shopper data, etc., are becoming more and more critical. And that's one again a learning which 2020 has taught multiple organizations. So to me, this measurement also is evolving. How does it relate to business of the brand? Right, it's not just from a context of only looking at awareness, or only looking at how many people saw the ad, or only looking at how many people can be reached. Right, today is a scenario where you're able to look at and understand from a real-time basis, and that is where multiple other data, multiple other measurements, from a digital perspective, many companies have started doing that. To me, that is where brands will have to. That is where the industry will have to apply their mind and start looking at it, right? We need a more proactive thinking on this, where brands have the ability to marry data of the sales, marry data of taste of consumers, marry data of what's happening in media, as well as how it has reacted, how the campaign results have been, what have been the outcomes. Therefore, those platforms can help and take the learning for the next campaign, right? I think more and more the community, the industry will start investing their time on that, right, and not just reflect back to only from a media perspective or an awareness perspective.
Come towards the end of my interview. Now I want to come to your role as CEO of the largest media agency in the country. Now I've spoken to a few CEOs over the last few weeks, trying to see how the pandemic is going to change their company and their cost structure and so on. And a lot of it coming from work from home. For example, what will happen to GroupM's travel budget in 2021? How much will that come down? How much will PK himself cut down his travel? How much will the organization adopt to work from home? What percentage of your employees will continue to work from home even after the vaccination is done?
This is a subject which is a continuously evolving space, right? Uh, I have never believed in concluding and judging it faster on this. But yes, cost structures are always a people business. You know it more than anybody, right? And I think our largest focus are going to be on our people, right? How can we continue to develop them? How can we continue to make the best in terms of consulting for our clients and our partners, and therefore help in their journey to progress, right? So that's our primary, the most primary priority. I think in order to enable that, if there are required travels, essentials aspects to be done on this, I think it is an important matter, and we will continue to invest on it, right? Things which are, probably which is not a must do, which could be, pushed to later. I think those are going to be delayed, right? But again, as I said, it's an evolving space. It's a continuous, because things will change. Vaccinations, what we hear today, and after 3 months, the subject again would have evolved, right? I think that is the biggest learning, uncertainty, and the evolving subject is the biggest learning that we have to continue to adapt, and we have to learn that it is going to be the world of always being adaptive, right? And that will reflect on an organization budget as well.
Okay. And the last word from you, your message to everyone working in media. If you have to give them one message today, in the media agency business, whichever agency they may be, what is your message to all of them?
Okay, I think my message is that, be super thrilled, be super excited. This is a fantastic phase. And the reason why I'm saying that is, again, for people who probably have spent 2 decades or 3 decades, is again a fantastic space, because something new has happened last year, something disruptive has happened. There's a lot to learn. We can experiment. We should continue to experiment. Second point, it continues the exciting phase. Please experiment. If there is a mistake, please do, right? And learn from it so that we can get even better, right? So it's an exciting phase. Put the efforts to experiment and learn, and continue to keep on being inquisitive, so that we can find a better industry formation and shape the industry in a better form.
Thank you so much, PK. And
Thank you.
And see you soon, either on Zoom or at your Bombay
I'm hoping
office.
to catch up with you in person.
Right.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Bye-bye.
Cheers. Bye.
And that was Prasanth Kumar, CEO GroupM South Asia, sharing his outlook for 2021 and the key factors that will drive growth this year. Here's presenting the MEL cheat sheet. Categories like FMCG, e-commerce, auto, telecom, retail and education are likely to be the growth drivers for India AdX in 2021. Content has helped TV to sustain in India. The digitized way of life is likely to alter consumer behavior permanently. With that, it's a wrap on this episode of Melt. To follow us on social media, our handle is Ready to Melt, and stay updated with all that's happening in the world of advertising and marketing with our daily Melt updates on our website readytomelt.com. I shall see you next week, same time, same place. Goodbye.